Okay, everyone, good evening once again. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is a meeting of Frome Town Council. My name's Philip Campagna, and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Just to remind everyone, we've got people online and, as you know, here in the room as well. For those in the room, a little housekeeping. Emergency exit is in the rear corner of the room, and the assembly point is the far side of the car park. Toilets through the doors at the end of the corridor on the right, and there is an accessible toilet to the right of the lift. Tonight, Paul, Will Clark, and Sarah, Becca, and Rachel will manage the minutes, questions board, participant settings, and IT generally. The meeting will be recorded, and we are live streaming to our YouTube channel. For those councillors attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand, and for anyone else, ask questions through the Q&A board. Thank you. And the first item on the agenda this evening are apologies for absence, which I believe we have a few. Paul, thank you.
We have indeed. We have apologies from Sarah Butler, Mel Usher, Nick Dove, Polly Lamb, and Andy Rintmore.
Thank you. Can we vote on the absences proposed? Andy Jones, seconded Mark Dorrington.
That's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any declaration of councillors' interests, please? Nope, that's good. Thank you very much. And next, Paul, please, is for us to approve the minutes from the last meeting on the 9th of August 23. Any points rising from those minutes? Okay, do you have a proposer, please? Steve Tanner, seconded Fiona.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, item 2. Questions and comments from, we'll start with public, please. If we have any comments, I believe we have Adam and Polly. Good evening, Adam.
Good evening. My name is Adam. I live in Rodden, so I live just on the A361. And I just wanted to raise an issue about the junction where it meets the A362, about just how dangerous that junction is. I regularly have to use that junction for work or for going to and from various parts of Frome, and it's a common occurrence to see very near misses with traffic, whether they're coming out of the junction, whether they're going in, and often my commute to and from work is disrupted by accidents that have happened on that exact junction. And I just wanted to ask whether there was something that could be done to make that junction safer, or to just to make whether it could be made safer.
If I can, Adam, we are sorry. As I say, we are aware of this. Anita and then Martin, please, okay, to respond.
Anita Collier, Frome Town Councillor. It's one of the things very close to my heart. And at the last council meeting, I did ask that we, as a council, sent a message to Somerset Council to declare how dangerous it is, and we'd like to have it looked at. Since then, I'm part of the Speedwatch group, and I'm very closely in touch with the police and the speed enforcement units. I've learned this week that there will be a speed enforcement unit on the bridge between the Commerce Park area and the entrance to Old Ford, which is a starting point. It's not what we want, but it is a starting point. So they will be watching from there to look at speeding vehicles on the A361. And I'm also attending a meeting in October with the speed enforcement unit and the police to talk about all safety issues in and around Frome, which have become very serious following those fatalities. So all I can say is it's in hand. We're very conscious of the danger of it all. And I think, certainly we're hoping that there will be some action taken. I did actually request that the possibility of maybe a roundabout or traffic lights at that junction, which would seem logical. I've been told that a roundabout isn't possible because of the vicinity of the railway line. I'm not quite sure how or why that works, but that was the response. And clearly, traffic lights, all those things are a major cost at the moment when Somerset isn't that well off. So we've got to be mindful of the costs involved in these things. But there will definitely be speed enforcement units up and down the bypass quite regularly to keep an eye on things until we can resolve it. Okay, I hope that helps.
Thanks for your question, Adam. Thank you, Anita. Martin, please.
To clarify, talking about the junction where past Asda, where the Warminster Road meets, that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Yeah, and it comes off the right. Yeah, where Somerset have recorded quite a number of accidents there, so they've got it on record, and they have. We were discussing it, and they have agreed that something will be done there, but they don't know what yet.
I will just clarify as well, it wasn't so much the speed of the vehicles. Most of the time that they seem to be within the speed limit. It's the danger of crossing the road to get out onto the carriageways, essentially. And it's one thing I've noticed. Obviously, you have a lot of tourists going to Longleat, Centre Parks that use that junction, don't understand the dangers of it, will flash people to come out across when they haven't checked their wing mirrors. So it's until it's like the design layout of that junction, people trying to be courteous, they don't understand the danger of it, but it's the layout that I mainly take issue with, because of it's just a recipe for disaster, really.
Thank you, Adam. Fiona?
Is there a Somerset councillor who can sort of take like ownership of this, and whether that's you, Martin? I'm presuming it's in Frome West. Okay.
I was asked, and I
Okay.
asked the Highways Department to get, the Traffic Management Department to get involved, and that's what they've done.
Okay, brilliant.
Thank you both. Okay, Adam, thank you. Any other comments from members of the public? Okay. Any comments from councillors? Fiona?
Obviously, there's been quite a bit recently, and have seen the press, which we are aware of, and it was included in Dawn's report as well, about the state of Somerset's council's finances. Latest figure seems to be £26 million in deficit this financial year, and £100 million over the next 3 years. Can I ask the sort of Somerset councillors, what is there a plan? What is being done? And if not, I mean, can we get some sort of regular update or something, so that we're sort of aware of what is happening?
Who would like to take that one? Adam, good evening.
I'll take that thorny thing from you. We get monthly updates now on the finances of council. There's another one coming up soon. So it's on a monthly basis that the finances are being monitored. There's no published plan. Clearly, councillors are working furiously with officers behind the scenes to try and minimise any harm, any cuts to services as possible. We don't want to go down the Birmingham route, but we're quite a long way off of that at the moment, as I understand it. So of course, we're all looking out for any news that anything is coming down the line on that. But yeah, it's being monitored.
Are you a long way off it then? Because I think I read that this year, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm getting all this from press, which may or may not be right, is £18 million has come out of the reserves this year. So I mean, do you know how big are the reserves?
Both this year and next year. And that the message is, if we carry on like this, in 2 or more years' time, there's a problem.
If you don't make any changes, but
if the financial situation with social care, children's care, government funding of councils continues, there's going to be a problem in a few years' time. 20 something is the message I'm getting. Yeah, it's around that. It'll go up and down. But also the audits from the previous 5 councils are still not signed off. So in terms of what exactly the financial situation is in the council, is still being looked at, still being finalised. So we don't know how many pounds that we'll need to take from the savings, the reserves as yet, but it's being looked at.
Can we just make sure that we get regular updates on it as it progresses, whether it's in the report, so that we have some idea of what's sort of being done, because obviously that will have a big impact on
the press release that I think Dawn quoted in her report is the latest update. Yeah, and there's an executive meeting this morning which had papers attached to it. It's all in there. Whatever you can see in there is the latest.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, perhaps that's something that the three of you could keep us updated as and when it's pertinent to do so. Okay, thank you. Any other councillors? Mark?
Adam referred to the report that Councillor Dawn Denton has circulated, and thank you for that, Dawn. I note within that you pulled Tessa Munt to one side to ask her about Berkeley School, which, as you know, a lot of people have been asking about in the town, particularly with a potential site on the Edmund Park development. That was a report for us, and we thank you for that. But to reiterate, it seemed that she answered every question about why we should have a new school, why there wasn't going to be a new school. And so are we saying that that idea now is practically dead in the water?
I think, as Tessa put it, that if the school was struggling and there weren't kids going, the parents would be the first to vote with their feet, and the school would be running on low numbers. But every year they're full. And she's spoken to the school, and from the answers that that I put to her, she can only go with the numbers in front of her in the projection. I think what I'm pushing for now is an official response, official decision that a first school will not be built, because that's what she's saying, that the stats in front of her. But it feels like the education department would like to keep that open, because we don't know what the next 10 years, we can have a projection, but we're not 100% sure what will happen in the next 10 years. And they have also assessed everything according to the plans that are in the system now, not plans that are still coming forward. So we know that that might trigger more need for school. If we can get official decision either way, then preparation can be made for the land at Edmund Park. I think the stumbling block at Edmund Park is the word first for the school S106 agreement money. And if we can get rid of the word first, if they've decided they're not going to build a first school, but a school, then that might help, because that can be any kind of school, whether it's an adult education school or a centre or for children, and I think what we've got now as well is there's the plans, or the discussions, the early stages of going to a two-tier system and I know Martin are you bringing that up in scrutiny on Thursday, or? Yeah, so I think Martin will raise that, because that might be putting more strain in some aspects of the education. So I think the frustration really is that we just can't get a decision either way. And once we get one, then at least we can make it, plans forward with the land or not.
I think we have to worry about the, I think the 106 has a life on it, doesn't it?
You see, that's the other worry, is that if they want.
So if it's delayed too long, then this opportunity will be lost.
Yeah, and that was why I'm pushing for a decision, because if we've already triggered the time frame, what we end up is we lose it completely, and then they're going to put buildings on it, and homes, which at this stage, I think we want something communal or some kind of educational space or something up there. So if we can get a decision, that would be great.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dawn. Any other FTC councillors? No? Okay. Now we're going to Somerset. Adam, please.
Hello, Somerset again. Hi. Just a few more things. There's a scrutiny committee meeting next Wednesday in Taunton and online about one of the items is a potential Frome school shake-up, early days, looking at the potential to go to a two-tier system rather than a three-tier. And there's a presentation on there which talks about engagement with the schools so far and engagement with the town council and others. So that's worth tuning into for an update, because the issue of a new school at Edmund Park, the future of Berkeley, and what Selwood consultation was, and the Frome College going to academy, potentially, and other first schools, that's all wrapped up in the future schools planning, which Somerset Council are looking into changing how we plan schools in the future. So huge potential for change in the future. It's worth tuning into that one. Wednesday the 13th at 10 o'clock, online or in Taunton, yes. Other things, various little things, but I've mentioned town council allowances again to the monitoring officer today. I waited to hear back on
Thank you.
that.
Thank you, both.
there's a thing called Creating Places for People consultations just come out from Somerset Council about creating better places through the planning process and other design means. So do have a look at that and please feedback in the usual ways. Frome adopted, didn't you, a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan several months ago. So can I ask if is there any actions for that, including a 20-mile-an-hour zone extension potentially? There's several people in the Fromefield area which I know are lobbying me and others for that.
Within the within the LC whip is recommendations for extending the 20-mile-an-hour zone on different routes around the town. So there's lots of stuff that's in that. It's gone through us. I'm not quite sure. I think then it is now with you. My understanding was it would then be passed by Somerset Council at some point. And I don't know whether it has been.
So no, it goes through into the local transport plan, but that takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a while. But if you're keeping an action plan, that'll be useful.
Okay, I can feed that back to Nikki.
Slightly separately, it's up to you if you want to respond to the Somerset Council's request for 20-mile-an-hour zone limits, extensions, proposals. Of course, at the town council's cost, I'm afraid, because of the budget situation. So we've talked about that. So if you had a plan, that'd be good to know. Another thing is there is an idling train at night issue at Lower Inox and Mill Close in particular. I'm on to Hanson and Network Rail about that.
Paul would just like to comment.
Yeah, just backtrack on the offer from Somerset Council to let us pay for extension to 20-mile-an-hour zones. What we are doing because we've got a LC whip, Nikki is investigating whether or not the recommendations in that can apply to those extensions, in which case, even if this council does decide to pay, at least we're implementing our evidence-based plan as opposed to a whim of someone. So that's where we are trying to investigate with the planning policy manager on that. So sorry to interrupt. Crack on.
Thank you very much, Adam. Dawn? Thank you very much. Anita?
Sorry. The joys of artificial nails. Yeah, sorry, Adam, on that point about Fromefield, the meeting I'm going to in October is very much about speed cameras. And we'll be looking at all sorts of sites as well, not only Frome, but other areas, but certainly in Frome. So, but they're only going to be looking towards those things if they have enough evidence. So those people you're in touch with, if there's any evidence they can provide, that would be very useful.
Thank you. It's going to be more to do with property and car damage from crashes into them than fatalities, thankfully, which are happening outside Frome, several in the last few months, unfortunately. Thanks.
Thank you. Anita, can I just ask, are those new cameras going to be number plate recognition cameras?
I don't know as yet. Certainly what we're looking at within Frome Town Council, we applied for a grant to get another speed indicator unit. If the grant, I think the grant has actually come through, I think we've been awarded it. If it does, we were going to request that maybe we could utilize it in whatever way we see fit. But the difference between the little cameras now that are online, they're quite tiny and very inexpensive compared to what they were. So we may be able to utilize that grant money in buying 3 or 4 number recognition units. But we'll have to see, first of all, confirm the grant, and secondly, to see what we can do with it. But yeah, there are certain sites in Frome that are certainly high on the list, I think, for that sort of support.
Thank you very much. Martin, do you have anything for us?
About the roads, which came up earlier.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next on the agenda, item 3, update on the programme to protect Badgers Hill Stadium. And over to Councillor Lisa Merriweather. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Yep. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Philip, who's a member of the CBS for the Frome town. And yeah, this is just to give you a little bit of an update. As you know, it's usually Mel standing up here and speaking, and he's very sad to be missing it tonight. So I will try to do my best to give you my best, Mel. As you know, this has been a bit of a white knuckle ride. We seem to have some incredible success, and then we get scuppered a little bit, and then we move on to other bits of success. So this is just putting it all together in terms of where we are at the minute, and hopefully you'll agree that by the time we get to the end of this, on balance, it's been an incredible amount of work that has produced an incredible amount of value for the community. Next slide, please. Okay, so you know that the project was to secure the asset. And what we were looking for is ensuring that the grounds were there for the community. In addition to that, there is a football club that exists on that site, which is also being supported. We managed to pay off the debt, which meant that the site wasn't repossessed. So it remains a community asset with the potential to develop it further as community benefit. The council worked hard to set up a community benefit society, which has been operational now for quite some time, is looking at recruiting new members and is going from strength to strength. There's a large-scale plan for improvements and developments to the site, which not only supports football within the town, not just of the men's first team, but also women, youth, disabled, looking at bringing all of football into the stadium with opportunities for that to be a site for them to use. In addition to that, and importantly, those improvements allow for the site to be used more by the community. So we're looking at inviting more community organizations, more community groups into using that space and looking at how it could create additional value for the people of Frome. We acquired the freehold. That's recently. The grant, we've granted the lease to the CBS. That's on a 25-year lease, which gives them opportunities for further funding opportunities and secures their position as the people that are running the site. We have also received received one grant and are in the process of receiving another. That will be to fund all of the works that will create that community benefit and social return on investment. Next slide, thank you. There is quite a bit for the CBS to do, and at the minute they're running with quite a skeleton group of people. So recruitment for that CBS continues to build capacity in order to deliver on the work that the CBS is expected to in terms of football and community. Lots of repairs. I think an architect has been appointed. Is that true? So that's in progress. We're starting on the process of building community awareness and engagement. As I said, there has been quite a bit of a roller coaster ride through it. So being very careful of when we message out and what we message out. But I think we're over the most difficult bits now, which allows us to engage more in the community and share our story a little bit better. And there's lots of work underway in bringing all of those football clubs and organizations which had been disparate into a collegiate way of working, which if you've ever had anything to do with football is no easy task. So kudos to the CBS and Frome Town Council for their work in engineering and supporting those relationships. Next slide, please. This over to Peter now for the planned improvements.
Thank you, Lisa. As I was directly involved in developing the plans for Badger's Hill Stadium and also was involved with working on the applications for grant aid that will fund that work, I've been asked to say a little bit about that repair and improvement programme. The image that you see in front of you is the current image of the eastern elevation of the clubhouse, which hopefully many of you will be familiar with. Many of you will have had an opportunity to attend events at that particular location. The repair programme will include a new warm roof. So what I mean by that is it will include an insulated roof. At the moment, there is little insulation within the loft space, but that new roof will improve energy efficiency of the building. There are going to be improvements to the appearance of the building, a new veranda, probably extended veranda, which is much easier to access and is much more of a kind of welcoming space for people who are using the clubhouse is planned. Some improvements to the car park. At the moment, unfortunately it's full of potholes, but that will be addressed as part of the repair programme. And disabled access as well, so that this building is accessible by everyone within the community that wishes to use it. The benefits of that will be, first of all, an improved experience for anyone using the clubhouse. We hope on the back of this that a broader cross-section of the local community will make use of the facility. It will be used more day to day than it currently is. But another factor is that by improving energy efficiency, the cost of operating the clubhouse will hopefully be reduced. And through greater use, the CBS will generate more income. And that can then be reinvested in the stadium. So that is a really important part of the repair and improvement programme. Next slide, please. And another element to the repair and improvement programme is actually improving the changing facilities, the first aid facilities, and the meeting facilities. At the moment, it's a collection of quite old buildings and containers and porta cabins in one part of the ground. The proposal is to do away with the buildings that you see there and introduce new accommodation using converted containers. And this is something that has been used by other football clubs up and down the country to provide accommodation which meets FA standards. That's really important. And again, one of the advantages of this is that it will improve the experience for users of those facilities, and it will help to raise income for the CBS because the new meeting rooms will be capable of being hired out. Next slide, please. Just wanted to say a few words about expenditure to date. We've had one or two questions about that, and we wanted to bring you up to speed with where we are with that. Councillors approved expenditure of £395,734. That's based on decisions taken at a number of meetings over the last 12 months. Expenditure to date is just slightly over that, 396,110. So we're £376 over the budget. But on such a large project, hopefully you'll feel that we've done reasonably well with that. And if you've got any questions about any of the expenditure items that you see on the slide, I'm sure that either Sarah or I will be very happy to answer those questions. Now I'd like to pass back to Lisa, and I think Philip will also be saying a few words. So over to Lisa.
Do you want a question of Peter, Anita? Yeah, Anita, please.
Sorry, Peter. Just thinking about the refurbishment and the repairs and those sorts of things.
Yes.
Clearly, if we want the clubhouse to be used as a venue for social events, etc., one of the most important things will be the use of the kitchen
Yes.
for caterers. I just wondered what state, if you could clarify what state of repair that's in at the moment, and if there are any plans to upgrade it if necessary.
Okay, well, there are some imminent repairs due to the kitchen. They are repairs to the hot water system. But that work should be completed within the next few weeks, and that should make it possible for the kitchen to be back in operation, which is really important both for the clubhouse and also for the CBS, and indeed for the football club, because that catering facility is quite important on match days in terms of catering for both the home team, the away team, and also visiting staff from other clubs. So, I mean, that's really good that very shortly that kitchen will be back in operation.
Martin? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Peter. I was quick to get off, I know. And I was just wondering if at any stage you would consider or have considered solar panels.
So it's a good question. I know that that's something that the architect will be looking at, whether there are other ways of generating renewable energy. There are already solar panels on other parts of the ground. It's interesting to note that with regards to the solar panels on the newest stand, that there is, according to Frico, who installed those solar panels, there is significant capacity still generated by those solar panels, which hasn't yet been used. So I think there's a decision there for the CBS to take as to whether additional solar panels will be installed, but it's certainly something I'm sure that the architect will be looking at, and whether we can, within the budget that's available, which is around £500,000 for the whole repair and improvement programme, whether solar panels can be installed.
Thanks. I think we've got one more final question from Adam, please.
Oh, hello. Hi, yeah, thank you. I'm just thinking that's a lot of money, clearly. Could you remind everybody where the funding came from for that? How did this town council afford that for this project?
Okay, well, it's worth pointing out that the funding for the repair and improvement programme is not coming from the council. The funding is actually coming externally. So already 364,000 approximately has been secured from the government under the Community Ownership Fund. We are hopeful, but it hasn't been confirmed yet, that will be matched by the Football Foundation through what is known as the Premier League Stadium Fund. Interestingly, the Premier League support non-league football, and an application was made for 150,000 to the Football Foundation. So put those two together, that gives us the £500,000.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, this expenditure here,
covered. Is that specifically covered by those grants? And
a question for Sarah.
I don't have the precise breakdown, but a large portion of it was from the Saxon Vale profit, if you like, when we sold the piece of land back to Mendip, and the rest was from general reserves.
Thank you, Peter.
Would you say that the town council's involvement has brought money into this town through this project, or has it generated a lot of spending on the project from the town council, or a bit of both?
Well, I'd like to think that our involvement has been key, working with our colleagues from the CBS in raising £500,000 for repairs and improvements. So I would say that actually we've had a positive impact already, but hopefully there'll be more in the future.
Thank you. Lisa, is it back to you? Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And just a little bit further to what Peter said. This has been an incredible amount of work by officers to pull this over the line in what has been a very difficult project. That being said, it is a considerable amount of money for a council to spend. And we haven't yet realised the community benefit that this will bring. We are looking at social return on the investment, community benefit, providing opportunities for charities and organizations to use the space at discounted rates, offering opportunities perhaps for businesses to incubate. So there is loads of potential in what we can do with this space. And we did enter it to save the asset. But what we are developing with the help of the CBS, who will increasingly take this on, is delivering on those opportunities for the wider community. At the start of this project, this was a site that was largely used by just football supporters. Where we are moving this to is that this site will be used by many more people in the community, looking at how we can engage people, not just in football, but other community activities, and providing a site at which that can happen. So yes, it is an investment. We do still retain the asset, and we have opportunities for community benefit, which are soon to be realised, and certainly written within the lease arrangements to the CBS. So we're looking forward to that next chapter where we can start to realise some of this benefit. Does that help? Okay. Next slide, please. So, as you know, with this project, we are not yet completely out to the other side. There are challenges. It's a complex project, and you would expect there to be challenges in any complex project. That being said, you know, the wins and the gains certainly outweigh the challenges at this point. The CBS is still building its team. I had said that there isn't as much capacity as there needs to be. It's a very new thing for Frome, and it's a huge culture change for the people who have been involved in the football club, and that's a process. That being said, the language around it, the opportunities are starting to show themselves. Engaging the community, that's a piece of work that still we have to invest heavily in. When we picked up the football club, there was a lot of ill will. There were a lot of challenges to the reputation of the football club, which we've had to work very hard to kind of dispel. And we've been working hard to build trust within the community, again, in that site and in the people involved with that site. And if you've ever done any culture change work, it is impossible. So that's a piece of work that's still ongoing. In November, the board will be holding their AGM. And we were building the membership of the football club. And that work is going to start ramping up in the next couple of months. The membership of that CBS will not just be in the football space. We need representatives from all parts of the community, organizations, a broader cross-section than what we have seen at the football club until now. And that's to secure its future as a space where we can realize that community benefit, and it could offer opportunity to more of the residents of Frome. There are still a few challenges, as Peter has alluded to. We are not yet in receipt of the large tranche of funding that is coming from the Community Ownership Fund. There's still a few hurdles with that. I think that the setup that we're working in terms of the council owning the asset is new for the Community Ownership Fund, and a little bit of a challenge into how to get the legals right on that. So that's a piece of work that Peter and Sarah and Paul as well as the CBS are working through at the minute. And you'll remember that there had been this talk of a golden share, which was held by Holdings. That's another piece of work that is nearly to its end. So on balance, we are looking much more positive than we have been in a long time. That being said, there are still a few challenges to get out of the way. I think the future for it is quite hopeful, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that community benefit is and how we can really capitalise on the opportunity on that site.
Thank you, Lisa. I've got Andy and then Fiona, please.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And I think, thanks to Mel and yourself and the whole team, Peter and so on, that have been working on this. It's been a huge effort for a huge gain. And, frankly, to lay out £400,000 to gain that asset for the town and then bring in nearly £500,000 worth of funding, which hopefully is going to be spent in local businesses and local tradespeople, is just a win-win. Talking of wins, some months ago we had an interesting conversation with, I think they're called True Speed, the company that are putting fibre optics around Stonebridge, and they suggested that they may be able to offer a free connection to a community facility that we nominated, and at the time we suggested that the football club may be suitable. I don't know if anybody's been able to follow up on that.
Peter, can you speak?
Peter, is that something you could reply to?
Just to say that I put people at the CBS in touch with True Speed. What came of that discussion, I'm not sure, but certainly the two parties were put together.
Thank you. Fiona?
Welcome, welcome.
It's going.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fiona?
Yeah, couple of things. So first of all, with the grant funding that we've got, is there a deadline on how quickly we have to spend that?
There is. So it is 12 months from the point of issue, which is something, and I'll explain what that means. So we were accepted for the grant in July, end of June. There's a 12 months spending period. One of the complications is that they haven't released that funding yet, because they're still going through legals in terms of council owning the asset and what it means for the CBS and what it means for the football club. We are pushing back quite heavily we shouldn't have to stick to a 12-month spending period if we are not in receipt of the money. What the CBS have done in response to that is engage the architect. So there is some work that is being done, and there is a robust timeline. So they're doing their best to stick to that, and also challenging the Community Ownership Fund at the same time, in terms of making that 12 months from the point of receipt of the funds.
Not issue. Yeah, got you. Brilliant. Thank you. And then, and also thank you very much for the tally of the expenses. Like, fantastic to see it all together and really clear, really good. And then I think at the last time there was an update, I think Carla suggested that there would be a councillor representative on the board of the CBS as a specific councillor representative rather than not you. Has that happened? Is that...
So Mel, which I will just take the opportunity to say how much work he's put in. I can pretty much assure you that he's listening at home. So well done, Mel. He's put his hat in the ring to be the council representative on the CBS.
Brilliant. And is it enshrined in the CBS constitution or whatever it is that there will be an active councillor member on the board?
So not just that. It's in the lease agreement that there will be council representation on the CBS, and in addition to that, if there is not representatives from the women's side, the men's side, and the youth side in football, that those spaces get taken by council representatives.
Very clever.
And additionally, I would really love to see everybody in this room be a member of the CBS when we get to that membership offer, which shouldn't be long. So I'll be counting on your continued support in helping to realise what the potential is in this space.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much. Philip, welcome. Would you like to make any comments or say a few words?
Yeah, let me come up because it's just you can see.
Yeah, mind the trap.
So I don't think I have a lot to add. I mean, first, I think just to acknowledge from the CBS the appreciation of the council's work on this. I mean, it has been a huge amount of work for the council, and the CBS really appreciate it. So my role is I'm vice chair of the CBS. Just to emphasise, in case there's any misunderstanding, the entirety of the CBS, all of the board are volunteers. So all of the work that we're trying to do is as volunteers. So I think everyone on the CBS has got a day job and is trying to fit in an extremely complex task with no executive, and therefore it has been really helpful to have Frome Town Council executive around some really tricky things which we just wouldn't know and wouldn't be able to call on. And so that partnership between the council and the CBS in trying to get this community asset to work for the community has been really important. And indeed that accompaniment I think will need to be maintained if this is to be successful. That's not to say that the volunteers who make up the CBS are not committed to it. It's just around pooling the resource. Just to underscore that to actually put some money in and match it 1-for-1 has been a huge success. That money would not have come into Frome if the Frome Town Council hadn't invested. Just again to reiterate, that money is being spent in Frome. So you know the architects, the builders, and so on. That will all come from Frome. The asset will be serving Frome, and again, so we're seeing a 1-to-1 return once these things are signed already. But again, I hope that you're seeing this, and I think that the 25-year lease is a long-term investment in creating an asset over time. Now, long-term, you could say, what is it? Is it 25 years? We would certainly expect something very significant to be on that side over a 5-year period that really embraces this whole aspect of diversity. So one of the challenges for us, and I observe as a CBS, is we have to ensure that there is a sustainable operation on that side, so that it actually has the income matches the expenditure, that business model works, and that therefore we can build and continue to invest from reserves into the site for the benefit of community. And that's very much how we're trying to think about it. So it's not a short-term gains, but it is really about making sure we've got the foundations in place. This issue around the membership, again, the membership offer will go out soon. That will be the initial membership offer. We'll seek to extend that. As you'll all know, success breeds success. So once people see things are happening on that site, they're seeing that the site is improving, we would expect that membership to extend. I think one of the challenges for us, and again, we really appreciate the support of councillors and the council more broadly, is to get the word out to the various parts of the community that won't necessarily associate themselves with the football club. This is not, one of the culture changes has been to say to Frome Town Football Club, this is not just about the first team. It's not even just about any other teams associated with it, but with the community as a whole, and thinking about how we reach out into other parts of that community and how, as Lisa said, that we can make the asset available for the community. We do have this one tricky thing about resolving the golden share, which is Frome Town Holdings, who currently own that. We are close to it, but if any of you have had to deal with that issue, it's not straightforward, can I say? And so UN negotiations are continuing, and we will get there eventually. I think that just to say and just to emphasize once again, this issue around diversity and inclusion, and again, it's a challenge again to move a football club of this kind to think genuinely about issues of diversity. So often people talk about diversity and they often just talking about difference. They're not really talking about inclusion. And so one of the challenges we have got, again, is to build our understanding. And again, that's where we welcome Frome Town Council support in understanding that diversity is not the same as inclusion, and the answers for diversity and inclusion are not the same. So that's something we really have to focus on and that we are considering as we go forward. That's probably all I want to say, but I'm happy to take questions. Yes, why don't I take questions?
Carla? Carla first, yes, I'm acknowledging you, Mark.
Thank you, Philip. Oh. Nice to meet you. Thank you for your work. Totally understand that it's a voluntary role, and really encouraging to hear, your understanding and awareness of diversity and inclusion. So both of you have kind of alluded to this culture change, culture shift. So I guess two questions really. Who do you envisage using the site other than the football club? And kind of how do you ensure, or how are you trying to ensure, I guess it's like kind of what are the symbolic messages that are being sent to the football club, that this is kind of rented, this is not just for you, this is not just for the first men's team, because obviously culture is created by, symbols, structures, powerful stories. So, I mean, it's all kind of part of the engagement, but I'd just like to understand a little bit more about the barriers that you're facing and how's it going and what you've tried really. And in part of that is your vision of how to use this site for more than the football club.
So I would say it's early days. So my day job is doing this kind of thing internationally, and it's difficult in those contexts. Even when you've got an operational team. When you have no operational team, to try and again, the understanding is the good intent is there, but perhaps the understanding is not always there. I think one of the things, some of the symbols are about how the site looks actually. So the site doesn't look good. I'm trying to think of a light way of saying it. It looks as though it's not a place which is welcoming to the community. So I think, again, the investment into actually the site and how it looks and thinking about how it looks, and therefore actually people who might not want to walk into what is a dilapidated sort of football site on the edge of town, trying to think about lighting, trying to think about how it's presented. Would you want to go there if you're a young parent with small children? Would you want to go there if you're a person living with disability? And at the moment, I think a lot of people would say, no, that's not for me, and that's not a place which welcomes me. So thinking about those kinds of things. So I think that how we make the place look is going to be important. So I think that's probably the initial piece in terms of changing it. In terms of who we envisage using it, it should be certainly in terms of the building. If we've got this building space, it's actually a large space. Once you go in there, in terms of the actual sort of square meterage, it is large. And I think what we're trying to make sure is that, one, that we've got enough revenue out of it to make sure that actually the wider space in all these periods of the week, at the moment, it's if you talk to the Football Sports Association, they'll say, well, the club is used, a day a week, 36 days, well, not even 36 days a year, trying to open up the premises to a whole range of community groups who might want to use it, looking at not-for-profits in Frome who might want to rent space. So you create a kind of hub, a community hub there. We've been in discussions with some of the entertainment venues in Frome to think about it as another venue, again, extending entertainment space in Frome. Again, there are some sort of initial discussions, but very positive ones. So thinking about a different audience, people who are not interested in football might want to be, interested in the sort of cultural life of Frome and what goes on here. How it extends into the Frome Festival and becomes a part, which the Frome Festival, does it reach out there, or is it still in the centre? There's all kinds of ways in which we can think about things. Sorry, that's a long answer and probably not. Don't know. That is helpful. Yeah, Lisa, go on. You probably answer it better.
So just offering a little bit more to that, Carla. Thank you. That was brilliant, Philip. Hannah's done quite a bit of work around the St. John's area, which is where the stadium is located. The people that use that site, there's a lot of travellers that use that site. There's a lot of people from the St. John's area. So part of the job is making sure that feels like a welcome space to those communities as well. So in addition to improving the way the site looks and feels, ensuring that inclusivity and that it feels like a welcome space for the people who live close to that, who are already using it. And those are people that are in addition to football fans. So yeah, I mean, it's a big piece of work. It is a big piece of work, and any support that you could offer that, Carla, would be very much appreciated. I know I've tried to rope you in before, and I will get you.
Great, thank you very much. I'm very conscious of time that we've taken a lot. It's a very important subject, I know. One brief comment from Martin and Andy, please, before we move on.
Times a week, would you expect the pitch to be used?
So you've got to be cautious about the pitch because it deteriorates quite quickly. So currently I think it's used twice, but I mean, I suspect the pitch will probably only survive. I'm not a pitch expert, but I think they're saying, 3 or 4 times is probably more than enough in winter. So that's one of the challenges. So the pitch is limited in terms of what it could be used.
Yeah, what are the regulations at that level of football? It's the 8th tier, I think, isn't it, of the football pyramid? On plastic surfaces or artificial?
We looked into plastic surfaces. It's just too expensive.
Okay.
Right now, and it's too big investment. So actually, we did a sort of assessment of that, supported by Peter and others.
Yeah.
To acknowledge it wasn't me.
Because it can be used more often.
Yeah, it could be used. And again, people like me, like you, I said, why don't we just get a plastic, 4G in here? I think there are a number of things around. One, the grant wouldn't have been accepted because they say, well, there's other 4G sites in the community, so they wouldn't want to pay for it. And 2, actually, the expense, it's almost $500,000 just for the pitch. Yeah, it's surprising how expensive it is. And then the pitch life, I think, is 10 years. I think it was Peter or something like that. Plus the maintenance is high, it's surprisingly high. You think, what do you do with a plastic pitch? But there is quite a lot of maintenance. So you'd have to have depreciation over 10 years and then spend another $500,000 replacing it. So yeah, so we didn't go down that route.
Great, thanks for that. Last comment, please.
I hope an easy one to finish on. I hate to disappoint everybody, but November ain't that far away. Have we got a date in November when the AGM is?
I haven't. I can't remember what it is. Anyone? Peter, remember what it is? Which one, Lisa? Yes, it is the last, because we were trying to push it back as far as possible.
So it's November the 30th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. Yes. And just to finish, if I may, so we are aware it's close. We have to have the AGM by then, but also the membership offer is an initial membership offer. We're looking to extend the membership over time. So the membership is not a one-off. It's about building that membership up. So get the word out, please.
Right. Thank you very much, Philip. I'm sure we will do that and offer you all the help we can. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa, Peter, and Philip for that. Item 4, I'm going to hand over to Paul now. Update on work of the community development team. You're going to stand up there. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Philip. Yeah. Next slide, please. Oh, done it. I thought. Next slide, thank you. So this talks about the steps that we've taken so far and the steps that I'm asking for approval to sort of restructure the community development team following the departure of Hellard. We thought long and hard about what to do about this, and there were pros and cons of lots of different options. What was really great for me was that the members who were still here of the community development team came to me and said, "This is what you should do, Paul." So I did. What that was Nikki and Hannah, who are here with us tonight, proposed that sort of jointly managing that team without the need, therefore, to recruit another Kate Hellard post. The advantages of that are really significant, I think. One is it enables a small organisation like ours to expand and develop existing staff into more senior posts, which, so progression, really hard when you've got such a fantastic staff team who never really leave in great numbers. So progression through the ranks, if you like, is actually really hard. So that was an opportunity to take for particularly for Hannah and Nikki. it also enabled us to sort of say, okay, so if we're not going to spend all the money on a new community development manager, a new Kate, if you like, what are we going to do? And this report talks about the processes that we've gone through to sort of come up with the proposals that we'll see tonight. Next slide, Rach, please. So what are the questions we ask ourselves is, okay, so how are we going to deliver it then? Because actually you take a full-time post out of the equation, increasing the responsibilities of two people doesn't actually increase the capacity. So how are we going to deliver the current poverty programme within the council plan? How are we going to, and this is the kind of the slightly ambiguous but also really quite significant area of work that this team does and has been doing over the years about supporting others in the community, others within the town council to enable them to develop what they want to do and what they need to do. And the last point there is about looking at over the horizon or on the horizon, go, okay, what's coming up? What do we need to be prepared for? How do we need to get ready, as opposed to go, oh, we didn't think of that one coming? And the kind of the detail of all of those, Hannah will pick up in a sec. Next slide, Rachel, please. As I say, this is all about capacity. I think it's all about ensuring we've got enough people, enough competent people to deliver the things that were in those 3 points that Hannah will talk about. And we've thought long and hard about what the best structure might be, what the best numbers are, what do we need to do, what's over the horizon, as I say. And we think, actually no, we're very confident, let's put it that way, that the 2 4-day-a-week engagement officers under Hannah Stopford's line management would enable us to be prepared for what's coming over the horizon, but also, most importantly, in the shorter run, to be able to deliver the council plan and the current work programme and the one that will come afterwards. And the highlight of the whole thing is there is sort of, and if you agree to this, councillors, this will save you money. Sarah and I have been we've been looking really clearly at our figures, and by saving Kate's salary, we can employ 2 4-day-a-week posts and save 10,000 a year as of our current prices, if you like. So I think there's a financial advantage to this. I think we're increasing capacity in the team, and we have a little bit of saving. That's not to like. I thought that it would be really important for you to understand, so what are they going to do then if we agree to this? And that's why I'll hand over to Hannah. She'll be able to give you a lot more detail and answer all the questions. Before you do, is there any questions on that, what I've said, before Hannah starts talking detail?
Fiona?
It kind of pulls in a little bit what I was going to say when we get to the financial bit, the next item. But you've got up there the community team salary budget, and you talk about the community development team. At the last staff chart, that team doesn't exist. We've got the reduced poverty, we've got the everything else. So it's just, I feel that there is something really confusing here going on, because you're sort of talking about, it's, and I'm not in any way, by the way, none of this is to do with what you're actually proposing, which I completely agree with, but it's just the clarity and the transparency around it. And that is very hard. And I mean, personally, the fact that we have anything called reduced poverty is just, we're just setting ourselves up for a fail. So personally, I would love that to go back to be community development, or to change the name of it. But it's also, I think that we need to just sort of agree a structure, and it feels like we've kind of got 2 different structures at the moment, and it's just making, looking at things and understanding hard, both, I mean, as a councillor, and I'm, pretty on it, but I can't imagine what it's like from the outside as well.
What about me? I mean, it's a really fair point. It sort of allocating, I mean, we'll come on to sort of how Sarah's and Hannah have worked really hard to allocate the budget along the lines of the programs in your adopted council plan. It helps to an extent to sort of say, this is the program we're working on. When I talk about a team, I tend to talk about people, and mentally, and maybe this is just because I'm getting old a bit, but I tend to look at people and their line manager and the group of people, and that's the team. Increasingly, of course, not increasingly, we've always worked across those teams to develop a project here, a project there, and maybe it would help if I think if you know, if the poverty work, for example, there's a project there, isn't there? I personally prefer to be reporting to you about what this team is doing, but that's up to you. I mean, we've cut our cloth a certain way over the last year, as you know, as the staff was asked to do, and we've done that with the way we report to you in the programs. If you're asking me how I'd prefer to do it, I'd much prefer to go back into sort of line management teams, and so this is what this group of people are doing. But that's because I come at it from that perspective. You know, our job is to manage. My job is to manage the people. But you make a fair point. It makes it probably does make it a bit confusing to people on the, if you like, on the outside.
I think. I mean, I don't know how we move forward on this. I don't know what the next step is, because I agree with you, Paul, that it's just very confusing, and I don't know how to. You say the community team salary budget. I don't know where I find that doesn't. Again, it does exist, but it doesn't exist, and I think that we have to be really careful here, because I can't. I would really like to, and I had this conversation with Sarah this afternoon. Like, look across the budget, be able to see, right, so this team is the staff expense is this, it's this, and then be able to get a feeling of where the balance is in the town council, and where, you know, and I at the moment, given how we are sort of pizza pieing, as I keep calling it, you know, Peter is split in 3. He's got 2.5 in this thing, 1 in here. You know, it's really hard, and I am, you know, well known for my attention to detail and pretty on it, and I'm struggling. So I don't know how people looking on the outside are. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what the next step is, but I would personally like us to, you know, resolve this and be very clear about it.
Okay, Paul, excuse me, does that allow us to proceed?
Can I just say, can I take that away and explore how I think it might be clearer to councillors and the public?
Please do. Thank you.
Sure, it's a really fair point, actually.
Thank you.
Fiona. Lisa, you want to come?
Just really quickly, that is part of conversations that we're having at the minute. I think one of the changes in this strategy that we're operating at the minute and the work plan is that budget had been allocated to the work packages and the projects within it, whereas before it had been allocated to teams. So exploring kind of the strengths and weaknesses of working on either side of that, and distilling it down into what the best thing moving forward is something that we're looking into.
I think the budget was also that, you know, we have a budget code now that says sort of reduce poverty, which don't, but, you know, we've already had conversations that maybe there's everything, you know, we've kind of fulfilled what we set out. There's obviously other work within that. So it's also about the longevity, and we can't keep changing, you know, structures. We can't keep changing everyone's job titles. We can't keep changing budget codes, but we also want the flexibility to be able to bring in new projects and be able to say, you know, let's work on this. So to me, there needs to be a more longer term structure around everything that we can then, you know, be more flexible in. And I think it is looking at, you know, I think community development is clearly something we're all really keen is part of our work as a town council, and it should absolutely 100% exist. It's that we need to, and that will continue to exist regardless of what it's going into.
Thank you, Fiona. I think we all agree on that. I think it's something that we can take away and we can talk about. Paul.
Maybe Hannah could come in and just say who we think say who we know the community development team comprises of. So maybe just start that one. No, when you come up and stand here, and yeah. So just
Now, Hannah, thank you.
Just sort of list the people in the team. Yes.
Yes, okay, sorry. Hi. So currently in the communities team is myself and Nikki and Melody. And within Nikki's area of work, there are the Refugee Welcome Hub, I don't know her job title, support advisor, social facilitator, and a currently vacant post for an advice officer. Yeah, is that okay? So this is some detail, obviously anticipating that question. We want to recruit some more people, what are they going to do? And actually, the areas of work that it responds to it kind of covers a few of the different work areas. So the three things that Paul mentioned were continuing the current work programme. And that's what the first few lines do. So in the reduce poverty area of the work plan, so there's the current areas of work that are happening. So the ongoing support for the Let's Talk group to develop their community offer for conflict resolution. So that's working with neighbourhood disputes, facilitating community conversations, and working with local voluntary and community organisations, and ideally supporting as the group grows to become independent and attract funding to be an independent group. And there's the ongoing and responsive neighbourhoods work. So that's quite varied, and it can be large scale and small scale. And there are things that we know coming up. So street event support towards the summer months. And then the plan was also to the work that we did in St John's to do a phase 2 element of that work in a different area. So anticipating that we've got capacity to do that, that can happen. So it's quite small, isn't it? But there's the three. So over the course of the next year, there's autumn, winter, spring, summer, and coming into next year as well. There's fairly light touch support for the neighbourhood network, who are now independent and are launching their Transition Streets project. And also within this area is supporting the community grants and support for community organisations, which again can be quite a lot of support, can be small bits of support. It's hard to predict when it's going to happen. It depends what people need. Included in that are things like working with the community cafe in Victoria Park to help them strengthen their community offer. And there's this then links in with the respond to climate emergency area of work. So the St John's, but also ties in with neighbourhoods. I mean, there's a lot of projects that are going to be overlapping in different areas. So there's the, we've just been awarded some funding in partnership with Loop and Gardening Together to run a neighbourhood growing project with land that Astor Housing are going to be donating to the project. So that's going to require some focused engagement work to get that going and then to support. And then I've said in a year's time that it would just be light touch support, but actually I was thinking once the garden's set up as a community hub, it's going to need some support to be tapping other organisations into it. It's going to be close to some areas where there's some other interest for rewilding projects, so it's actually probably not going to be that light touch. And then there's projects that we know coming up, so school streets, there'll be some support required for that, and this is kind of coming into the second part of what Paul mentioned in terms of supporting other teams and what they're doing. And so the next slide is the nurturing our open spaces. And again, some of these are big pieces of support and some are very light touch. I didn't put Broadway in there. Sorry. Yeah, I thought you might. So we know there's Milk Street Green, the small area in Trinity that has got a community group around it that's interested in developing the space. Broadway Community Gardens, obviously, we're looking at supporting some open spaces reviews in spring and then in summer next year. So, and then the next few lines are anticipated support required, but in areas of work that we know are going to happen. So there's the LCN support. We're looking at applying for some funding from SALC to support, to have some extra feet on the ground to support with some engagement work with the parishes and villages. And then the Frome Riverside project, the Badgers Hill Stadium project, the transport and active travel. I'm kind of whizzing through these because I've gone into a broad thing, because this isn't a plan of action. This is anticipated areas where support's going to be required. And then in the next slide, there is housing and a neighbourhood plan and the town centre. And then that last one that doesn't have a work programme attached to it is the third thing that Paul mentioned, was the what's coming up, like what can't we predict and what might happen. And although it's a tiny line, it's potentially a big area of work. So we've got some guesses. They're quite good guesses, and then also, you know, the surprises that are around the corner. Yeah, so that's the detail.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Lisa?
Thank you, Hannah. One of the things that we seem to be picking up in conversation as a group of councillors, and particularly around the unitary conversation, Carla had brought it up, about where we get the information about need. So, you know, what are the needs of the 27,000 people who live in our community, and what's the process by which we make decisions about how we allocate the money in the council. And I can see how you've mapped it across to the current work programme. Is there resource within the newly developed posts to better inform us as councillors and staff about the needs of the community?
Yes. Yes, and again, that's part of the anticipated, that section there. But then also some of those topics that are in the other areas, so housing and education and transport, are all going to be feeding into that as well.
And just so that I can imagine it, do you have an idea of what that work might look like? Like how you would go about supporting us to have a better understanding of need?
Yes. So it would, depending on the scale of different things, it would look like a whole bunch of stuff. So a mixture of methods in order to create the widest reach, engaging with the sort of the hard to reach people, as well as the people that will fill out surveys. So pop-up events, being out and about, being ears on the ground and eyes, you know, around. And and that actually is the time-consuming part of these. If for high-quality engagement, you need the time and the people doing it.
Great, thank you very much, Hannah. Okay, we have the proposal. One last one, Fiona. Thank you.
It's a persnickety financial question. I'm sorry, I only just thought of it. The 10K saving, is that based on the new salaries from the union, including the union? Yeah.
Right, thank you. Right, we have a recommendation. Everybody happy with that? Do I have a proposer, please? Anne, seconded by Anita. All those?
That's unanimous.
Thank you all very much. Next item, Steve Tanner, verbal report, please, on the new neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Right. Put that there. Thank you, Philip. Talking of new projects, as Hannah said, a few of us have been talking about our neighbourhood plan for a few months, and I thought it was probably a good time to put it out there what we might do going forward. We currently have a neighbourhood plan. This is it.
Hopefully everyone's read it. It was done some time ago. And I know there's a few people here that were involved, and it was quite a lot of work at the time. To give a bit of context, a neighbourhood plan, this is from Somerset County Council's website, a neighbourhood plan is a community-led framework for guiding the future development, regeneration and conservation of a parish. It may contain a vision, aims, planning policies, proposals for improving the area or providing new facilities. It can deal with a wide range of social, economic and environmental issues. That's it. We were one of the first parishes, from what I understand, was involved to actually do a neighbourhood plan. At the time, it was really groundbreaking. No one really knew what to put in it. A lot of things were tried to put in it, and I think quite a few things came out at the end of the day. Neighbourhood plan needs to be signed off by a government inspector and needs to be agreed by referendum. From what I understand, even the government inspector wasn't that clear on what was going on at the time. Things have moved on a lot since then. That was nearly 10 years ago. There's an awful lot of neighbourhood plans out there now. A lot of parishes have done them. A lot of parishes are in the process of doing them. I think Beckington and Road are both doing their own neighbourhood plans at the moment. So there's a lot of data about neighbourhood plans we can pull on, which we couldn't pull on in the past. The neighbourhood plan sits beneath the local plan. So you may have heard local plan part 1 and part 2 mentioned over the time. The neighbourhood plan would sit beneath those local plans, but it becomes policy, and that's quite important going forward. That it is actually a policy, and in terms of when any development or issues around the town, the inspector will look at the local plan, the neighbourhood plan, and see what's in that neighbourhood plan. It was really, really evident when the Marston Lane development went to appeal, and one of the strong reasons why the inspector rejected the appeal was because in our neighbourhood plan, skyline was protected at the Marston Lane Ridge, and he said that carried severe weight, and that was one of the grounds that he rejected it. So they are effective in the long run. Our existing plan has 3 golden threads, as it's called, going through it: vitality, participation, and sustainability. It also has sections on housing, business and employment, town centre, river corridor, public open space, transport and design. All things that were done 2014, 15, 16, and you could argue they all probably need updating. By the time, even if we start now, by the time it's updated, it will be 10 years old. So a lot of these policies that we have are out of date. They probably need updating, and some of them we're already looking at. Already looking at town centre, open spaces. Mark's done a lot of work. Town centre, Mel and Nick put a paper in not that long ago. Housing. We had the housing crisis declaration not too long ago as well. So there's already a lot of work on those sections that are ongoing. There is no sustainability section in our neighbourhood plan. It's a common thread, but there is no climate emergency. There is no climate section in our neighbourhood plan. There really should be, quite frankly. And things like trees. I think that was one of the things that they tried to put in. It's not put in, so things like that could be coming. Community wellbeing, this has been discussed tonight, that can all go in as well. So there's quite a few areas where we can update. It's quite a long bit of work. Minimum 18 months. Jane thinks a bit longer, because all the policies need to be backed up by evidence. It can't just be us saying, "Oh yeah, we want to do this, we want to do that." We have to then get evidence to back up what we want to do. That means significant engagement. Again, some of that's already happening. So some of the things that we have done could almost be a sort of a plug and play into a new neighbourhood plan. Things like the LC whip, for instance, the work around St John's that Hannah's already done,
town centre developments. Lots of data already exists, and we can capture that data probably a lot better than we could 10 years ago. And unlike last time, there are people that specialise in getting these neighbourhood plans through. We know of a couple of consultants that we could use, and they are very widely respected, and other parishes have said, yeah, we had a great experience working with these people. So it's not something that we're just going to try and bundle through ourselves. I think if we're going to do it, we get the expert in to help us as a consultant, and they help getting it signed off as well. I spoke to a couple of people that were involved in the previous one, Mel obviously, and he very kindly put some pros and cons about what we could do in terms of the neighbourhood plan, and some of the pros he said, things like town centre, as I've mentioned, sustainability, environmental issues, river corridor, design codes, producing more specific programs about different areas of the town. And obviously, some of the cons, we don't have many housing sites now, so that is something that we just don't have. Part of it, though, we could look at the boundary of our town if we wanted to go that far. Transport we had before, but transport is something that I think is very hard for us to do here in Frome. Transport is much more of a Somerset-wide thing. I think if we're going to do something around transport, it would be a movement strategy rather than a transport strategy. And obviously then the cost of the whole thing. I think one of the things that we need to be clear of is we can't raise too many expectations if we go down this route that it's going to be an all-encompassing, and solve all our problems. But at the end of the day, it is something that we can refer back to, and it will help us, certainly help us going forward. In terms of resources, time that we think we're going to need, the intention really is just to let you know that there is some discussions going on about it at the moment. We are looking to bring a paper back to council probably for the next council meeting. I'll talk to Paul about that. That will go through in a lot more detail what we intend to do, how we intend to do it, and the costs associated with doing it. There is funding available. I think it's up to £20,000 is available, and that's from government, because they're very keen that parishes do the neighbourhood plan. Somerset County Council, we've spoken to them, they're very keen that we do a neighbourhood plan. So some funding is available, and this is going to be a long exercise, so any costs could be spread over probably 2, maybe even 3 years of accounting. So that's basically it. So if you've heard the neighbourhood plan mentioned a few times, and I know it was mentioned earlier on, that's the current status, and we'll get back hopefully with a paper for the next council meeting.
Great. Thanks, Steve, for your update. I got one question for you from Andy.
Not so much a question, just a comment that, I think it's going to be a big piece of work. I think it's important that we try and find the right balance between being realistic in what we're looking at, but also being brave and aspirational. And, part of the engagement with our public needs to be to explain that this is a vision for where we'd like to take Frome. It's not something that we're promising to deliver in the next 10 years, but it's, this is how we see the way forward, or rather how the town sees its way forward.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the engagement is key, and it's a great opportunity to engage with the town and to hear what the town want to say to us. I mean, we're not going to engage with the town by going and saying, do you want a new swing, for instance? It's going to be assemblies and things like that we'll have to get involved in. Yeah, Fiona's very keen on stuff like that.
Great, thanks very much, Steve. Okay.
Any more?
Any more? Nope. Thank you. Thanks very much, Steve. Okay, we come to the last item, item 6. to approve the new budget layout, asset disposal, and retention of the internal auditors. Over to Sarah, please.
Yes, thanks. On behalf of Hannah, the paper was circulated. There are 3 items on it. One is has already been talked about, which is the budget layout, but we can discuss that. The second item is disposal of items that are no longer of any use to us. And the third is appointment of internal auditors. So we'll talk about the first one, shall we, which is the revised budget layout. We're asking council to potentially approve this change, because what you approved originally in January was the old traditional layout. So on request, we redesigned the accounting system to match the current strategy, the town council strategy. I agree, actually, it could be a work in progress, and talking to Paul about it, he and I can take it away. I know, Fiona, we had a really good conversation earlier. Is there anything else you wanted to?
I just, in between when we talk, I just want to really flag up, the more I thought about it, the more I think it is really important that we have a separate budget centre, which I think we did for the PWB loans. I think being able to really clearly see our long-term debt and our liability in one clear budget is, I think, really important. And at the moment, they're sort of across 3, I think, different budget codes, and also they're pulling different things in. So I asked Sarah sort of which one is this? Because I know that we've got quite a few. And I think just being able to see that figure, I would, again.
So I suspect there'll be different points of view on that. The good thing that we do need to do is rename how we've worded them in this report. So we just put Public Works Loan Board in each of the centres. So we'll break that down. For example, under assets, we'll show that it's the cheese and grain. Under the town hall, it will be the town hall PWLB. And in the open spaces, it will be the Showfield and the Victoria Park toilets. If council as a whole agree they want all the PWBs back in their own centre, then I'm sure we can do that. But I think it's good to get a consensus, and perhaps in this meeting might not be the right place to do it, but it's great to raise it. I do think it's a work in progress, and the staff chart, as you've said, Paul, and I can review.
Thank you, Fiona and Sarah. I've got Andy.
Of course you've got Andy. And thanks, Sarah, for coming back to the question I'd raised to understand the various numbering schemes within the schedules. I think the challenge is, of course, that each of us wants to see something different. And the reality is that unless you're an Excel pivot table wizard, it's quite difficult to extract it in those different slices. So I think this looked to me like a step in the right direction, in the sense that at least we got some numbers under each of those main things that are in our strategy. And we've still got some cross-reference back, so we can pull together what are our total staff costs and so on. So it seemed to be moving in the right way, but I think, as been discussed earlier, there's some room for some tweaks to clean it up a bit. But that's not going to stop me voting in favour.
Thank you. Do we have the proposal slide, please?
Is that the questions on the budget layout? Did anyone have any questions on the disposal of assets or the appointment of internal auditors?
Nope.
No? That's great. Yeah, you can take all the recommendations together.
Okay. Are we happy to take these as 3, or would you like? Yes? Okay, you'd like happy to go separately, yes? Okay, so first one, approve the new layout. Proposed by Andy Jones, seconded by Carla. All those.
As a majority, are you abstaining or against?
Fiona. Okay. Yeah. Recommendation number 2, approval of disposal of the Goop Hill electric vehicle, etc. Proposed by Steve Tanner, seconded by Mark.
That is unanimous.
Well done. And third and final, approve the appointment of fair account for Frome Town Council's internal auditors. Proposed Andy Jones, seconded Anita Collier.
That's unanimous as well.
Thank you all very much. That concludes our meeting. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, members of the public and Somerset councillors, for coming along. Thank you, team, for this evening. And thank you for all those online. And the next meeting will be at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, the 4th of October, 2023.